this wonderful neck warmer beginning the end. We'll be using our double knit loom, our KB rotating double knit loom. I have a video that shows you the unboxing and how to put it together. But look at this! It's a loom on a Lazy Susan. I gotta tell you guys, I was honestly a bit skeptical about this loom. Skeptical about this loom. But I really, really like it. I have been knitting a storm up. I actually have made 3 different cowls. And the one I've got on, this is the one that we're going to be making in the video. I love how the yarn worked up. A couple things I want to show you guys. Okay, now this KB rotating loom you can purchase separately. It doesn't come with the loom. They have these 2 loom tools you can get. I explain how to use these more in the video. Honestly, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but I absolutely love them, and it really, really cut down the time in making my cows. This one took me probably 3 days to make using just a regular loom tool. This one I got done in a little over a day using these tools. So it really does speed up the progress. But I have made, so far, I have made 4 cows and 2 hats on this loom. Now the hats will be next week's video. Sorry guys. Okay, so I want to show you a couple things about these cows that are so cool. First of all, what's wonderful is each of these look so different, and the only difference is the yarn I used. So if you like this brown and blue one, I used Premier Yarn, Sweet Roll, and okay, where do I see the colorway? It's 100% acrylic, Cappuccino Pop. Hopefully this will zoom in so you can read all that. I was able to make the cow and hat and still have this much left from one of these. So that's awesome. Now I am running 2 colors together, so you have, I just threw that. You have the pop yarn, and then I just got I held it up together and got a Caron Simply Soft and kind of a beige that I thought went well with it. So that's what I used for this one. Now for this one, look how this striped up. I just think that is so cool. When your collar kind of does weird things like this, it's called pooling. If you have the Stash to Go Ravelry app, there are actual ways to calculate how your yarn is going to pool if you aren't really sure what it's going to look like. That's really neat, and I really should do a video on that later. But for this one, I used, again, some Caron Simply Soft in white I just had laying around, and this is actually yarn I had laying around too. This is the Caron, it's not the Simply Soft. This is the 1 pound Caron ball. Next time I'm at the store, if I catch the name way of it, I will put that in the video description, and I'll update the PDF with it as well. But this is really cool. Now they do have the same colorway in the Simply Soft version if you would prefer that. I just had this left over from my 10-stitch blanket. But look how it turned out, and even look at the hat. The hat kind of striped the same way, so it's really, really cool. Okay, for this one, see how it's just kind of the collar spirals? Again, Caron Simply Soft, guys. I'm going through my stash of yarn. Let me see if I can show you. Okay, I've been going through my yarn stash and trying to use up stuff that I already have. A couple of the yarns I did go out and purchase, but I got a bunch of this in the Millins, so I'll show you up close. It's Caron Simply Soft. Again, I don't really know the color, but there's only this one that looks like it in Caron Simply Soft, so it's just really cool. And then, of course, I just used a black with it. But you will see, let me kind of get this to where I can rotate it and you can follow the colors of it. it like swirls. I had no clue it was going to do that. So I really, really like how this one turned out. Now the thing about these cowls is I get very, very cold. So I made them to be used multiple ways. Like you can cover up part of your face. See, a little bit of my neck's still showing, but you can do that. Have, you know, your mouth and stuff covered, and then put a hat on. Actually, I don't have the hat made for this one yet. That's what I'm going to be making. I'm going to be making the hat with the next video. But I will show you with this cowl how it works. Okay, so I'm going outside. It is freezing. Here's the hat. Put the hat on over top. You can fold it up if you want, or you have like a slouchy hat look. Then I pull the back down. I'm going to do a spin. I am so warm. This is awesome. And I can pull it up and have everything just but my eyes covered if I need to. And I still look fabulous. Sorry guys. Or I can just take it down, and this one, it just so happened that the way it's striped with this one, I can do it where the blue shows, or I can flip it inside out where if I want the brown to show, if I just fold it over. Or you can just do the normal scrunched up cowl look. I really don't like the name cowl for these. I prefer to call them neck warmers. But there's just a lot of different ways you can wear them. And now I got to make the decision of which set am I going to keep. Other tools you'll need, of course, you need your loom. I'm going to show you spinning again. Sorry. You don't really need a tape measure, so that's out. You can use, we need scissors and a crochet hook. That's really it. You could sit and work on this loom, just sitting on a table. You can hold it in your lap. I love it. I'm hoping to put out maybe 4 or 5 different patterns for this loom within the next few months. Fingers crossed. Wish me luck, guys. We've been having colds and all this crap going through the house and snow days, which makes it almost impossible for me to get anything done. So wish me luck, and hopefully you guys will be seeing a lot more of these patterns. Alright, let's get into it. Here we go. Before we get started, I do want to go over something. There are various ways you can cast on and cast off for this project. Now, my original attempt with my cast on, I just crocheted that cast on edge, and I really like the appearance of it. But the cast off that kind of goes with it, I'm not a big fan of the loops like this, because it's kind of a bit of work to kind of pull those down so they're not super noticeable. So what I'm going with is a cast on cast off that's a little looser, but the edges are more similar. Like this is a basic bind off. Again, it still has those loops, but it's all in one collar, so you're not going to notice them like you did. Basically what you're doing is just a few rows in one of your collars at the beginning and at the end, which I will go over that more in a moment. But we can go ahead and get cast on. The yarn I'm going to use for this project is just a black Caron Simply Soft, and I'll have to find out the name for this, but it's a Caron Simply Soft as well. Now to decide, are we going to start with black or are we going to start with the rainbow? I think for this one, since for this one I started with the same color going through, I think I'm going to do the opposite for this one, just so you can kind of see a bit of the difference that it creates. To do our cast on, I'm actually going to do a figure 8 cast on. So to do that, you create a slip knot. I put that little string down in the middle, and then tighten it up. Typically I do not hook my yarn like this, but this loom does not offer an anchor peg. And if I was going to be doing this in the figure 8 for the entire project, I would be using a tensioner, which is basically something that goes over the string so you can hold it and you can wrap really, really fast. But for our cast on, we are doing the Stockinette figure 8 stitch. For the body, we are just going to be doing the Stockinette. But if you like the way this looks, you can do this entire project with just the figure 8 stitch. I just suggest use a straw or something as a yarn guide. Do this all the way around back to your first peg right here. Alright, so I've done all of these. You might need to hold this down. Go around the loom, push those down. There we go. See, they're all pushed down. That's kind of staying where it needs to be. Grab a yarn and a contrasting collar that you're not going to get mixed up with any of the other collars. Let me zoom out to show you this. Okay, so what I'm taking is this contrasting collared yarn. Oops. Putting it down in the track all the way around. This is to separate this first row out so that when we go back at the end, we can crochet that cast on and it'll look really pretty and even. And you can either use your loom tool or a crochet hook, but where this between the first stitch and your last stitch, I just pull both those strands down through. They are down here. And just so I don't accidentally pull them out as I'm working, I do a little knot there, and you can either do like a slip knot type knot or you can do a bow. I just knotted it so it'll be easy to remove. So there, we've got the first part of our cast on done. Now you're following, pull that down. You're doing the exact same thing as your first row. You are figure 8 wrapping another row. Wrap all the way around, and then I'll show you what to do next. Oops. Okay. Zoom back in so you can see every peg now has 2 loops on it. And at this point you have the option, you can use, if you have these loom tools, you can use them, or you can use a regular loom tool. I'm actually going to use a new loom tool. I got this one from Cindy Wood. It's their new ergonomic tool. So I'm going to try it out a bit. I will be using, so I take the bottom loop over the top first for the one that is connecting right here. That way this does not come undone. Now you can take and just start pretty much anywhere on the inside or the outside, taking your loops up and over. I'll show you a couple on the outside here. You just take the bottom over the top, and you do that all the way around. Now, the problem I found with doing that is it pulls the stitches on the inside up, and then it's harder to grab those. So I prefer, let me re-angle my camera a bit, I prefer to go on the inside and take my stitches and then just rotate it. You can purchase these tools right here separate to use if you want. Now I will go ahead and show you how to use these as well. You would think smaller one for the inside, bigger one for the outside, but it's actually the opposite. The bigger one goes for the inside because you pick up alternating ones, which I will show you real quick. Hopefully my camera is zooming in on all this right. So what this does is less tension and you get it done a lot faster. Using these tools saved me about 15 to 20 seconds per row. Now I haven't redone this after I've made, because I've made 2 sets. I've done 3 cowls so far and I've done 2 hats. And then I did like a weird hood thing using these. So I haven't timed myself, but I do find that I save a lot of time using these. But when you first get them, you may notice that they may not fit in the tracks right, so you might have to kind of squeeze them together or pull them apart just a little bit to fit. And then it's a lot less work on your wrist because you're literally doing half the work that you would normally be doing. And for me, with my carpal tunnel and everything, it just seems to work a lot better. But there is a bit of a learning curve with these, so if you get them, you do need to practice. You want to make sure your loops are going over. And you do that all the way around on the inside. Then, let me show you how you can use these on the outside. Again, you may need to bend them a little bit. One thing I've noticed with mine, this one right here is just a tad bit longer than this one. If you're right-handed, that's probably a big plus, but I'm left-handed, so I have to kind of tilt it just a bit. And again, I did have to bend these just a little bit just so they fit in the grooves easily. Oops. So you will go around. Sorry, I'm sitting a lot farther away from the loom than I'm used to. You go all the way around the outside and you do the same, or there's no problem, you can do your regular loom tool if you would like. That is perfectly fine. You don't have to have these tools right here. They are just an option, but you'll probably see me using them off and on throughout the video. Just know that everything I'm doing with them, you can do with this. So go ahead and take your bottom loops over your top loops on the inside and outside, and I will show you how to get started for the body of the project. Cast on is complete. I pushed the strings down to the bottom. Now this cast on edge, don't even think about it until you're done with the project, because that string's going to stay there and hold it the whole time. Now, to make it easier to see how I'm wrapping this, because I'm doing a stockinette stitch, I'm going to do the black first. Again, no anchor peg, so I am doing a knot, and I'm not a fan of doing knots in projects, but I will show you. Okay, this is coming, the string is coming from this peg right here. Let me zoom this in a bit. The working yarn is coming from this peg, so I'm going to put my slip knot, actually, instead of a slip knot, I'm just going to do a loop. Doing my loop on this one, and I'm going to hold both strands together so I don't have this long tail to weave in. And as you can see, I'm going over every other peg, and I'm going to wrap at least 3 to kind of lock that string in. Then that string will kind of be buried in here. And then I will go and show you. I will do this slow so you can see I'm wrapping every other peg. But I think, and when I'm doing this, I usually, sorry, I had to move the working yarn out of the way. And see, you can just keep this in one place and wrap all the way around. And that is awesome. Now, this one that we started with, I'm rewrapping it. Then I'm going to take my loom tool and take that bottom loop over. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take, just so I don't have to mess with it, I'm going to take the black and actually just stick right there so I can go ahead and do my like rainbow variegated color. And with it, I'm just picking up the opposites. It's coming from this peg, so I'm just picking up what I haven't got yet. The reason I chose to do a 2-collared project for my first project on this loom is because see how fast you can wrap this up. I'm already done with the row. You don't have to worry about, again, I am taking the loop off, so these are locked in. And actually, usually what I do is, while I'm working on them, which I love this fact that I can do this while I'm working the row, I can shove both yarn inside the loom. That way there's nothing in the way of me wrapping this or knitting off these pegs, which is basically, that means taking the bottom loops over the top loops, pushing everything down. And this will create, the black will be kind of like these beige stripes, and the rainbow color will be like the blue and the darker brown, but they're going to pool different. And pooling is just how your yarn shows. So as you can see, this was a slow variegated yarn, so that meant that it's striped. It was slow collars. It was really thick and it's striped, real big chunks. This one was a variegated yarn that it just happened that it kind of pooled in like a swirl. So we will see how this rainbow yarn works up. Kind of interested in seeing that. So go ahead, whether you're using these tools or this tool, take and knit off. One thing I do suggest is I do not always start at the same spot. So I'm not starting right here where my stitches are already cast off, just to hold those in place so it doesn't come undone. Maybe I'll start over here for the inside and knit off all the way around. Like I said, I prefer to do the inside first. It seems to be a lot easier that way. You have more room on the outside of the loom to maneuver your hooks and everything. So it just, for me, it works better that way. You don't have to do it that way. That just seems to work better for me. So you'll knit off your entire inside, and then just pick a random spot on the outside, and then knit off the entire outside. Push all those down, and I'll show you your next row. Alright, that row is complete. Now we can do our next row, which I'm just going to pull the black out and leave the rainbow yarn in. And you always start with the same color. So every row I start with black. I'll zoom in a bit. And now for this row right here, because the row you just cast off was the last of like your cast on row, so it was all the rainbow. So your next row will be rainbow and the black. There are some from your cast on that'll have more than one loop. You'll treat those like one loop. But okay, so my yarn is coming from this peg. So I will go up here, and you wrap just the same. All the way around. I'm just going to do this in real time so you can see how long, once you get used to wrapping it, how long it takes to wrap a row. And you knit that off. That one had 2 loops. Actually, that one might have had 3, I forget. But either way, it's out of the way now. So I stick that there. Alright, now the yarn is coming from this peg. back to beginning, knit that off, and then stick that one in there too. See, that went pretty fast. One thing I did forget to mention, every time you knit off a row and you push it down, look on the inside and outside and double check just to make sure you didn't accidentally knit any of these off, or that when you pushed it down it didn't pull that stitch back over. Now if you do end up finding any, like when you're working through, that have like 2 loops on it and they're not supposed to, be very careful. Let me zoom this in just to give you an idea what you would do. What you'd want to do is you'd be very careful. You would take this stitch right here off, then you'd pull the bottom stitch there over top the top one, but you have to make sure you're pulling that bottom stitch over the top and that they didn't get crisscrossed, because if you get the wrong one, you are dropping the stitch. It'll come undone all the way down however far you have worked unless you catch it. I will do a separate video to show you how to pick those up in case that happens, because I've had it happen to me multiple times, because I like to binge watch. Right now I'm binge watching Deep Space Nine while I am working on my projects. So what I just did, this stockinette stitch, that is the entire body of this project. And I found for me, this seems to be the perfect length because I can fold it in half and it just cover my neck, or I have enough to kind of cover my face and part of my head and part of the back of my neck. Altogether it is about 10.5 to 11 inches long. It's more, if I stretch it, it'll be, we'll say closer to 11 inches long. Now, this part of this right here will shrink down as you do your cast off. But what I do, and I will show you again when I get more of this worked out. See, you've got like a 4.5 inch space from here to here. This would be a lot easier if they need, I would really love it if they would make extensions for this loom to make it about double the length up, and then you don't have to worry about folding and measuring, and you can just work. But what I do is I work it down, and once it gets down here, it'll kind of start to pile, and you got to kind of fold it up. I will work until it's folded up to where it's back up to this top. So it's going down and it's folded up and it's going back up, and then I will do my cast off, which of course I will show you that, so it's, hopefully I explained it good, but I will show you that before we do the cast off. Just work on the body, make it as long as you want. For me, about 11 inches was perfect. If you want it shorter, if you want it longer, you work it however you want, and I will show you the cast off. Alright. Okay, so here's what I was talking about. As it got longer, I folded it up and just kept going until it's about, see, it's up to the top, a little more than double the length. And my ball of yarn started getting small, so I wound it up, just stuck it there when I wasn't using it. Now, what we need to do is 2 rows of the figure 8 stitch again. So we're going to do that with the rainbow color since that's what we started with. So cut the black. And what I like to do is I will follow it along the path of a few of, I'll show you. Just follow along the black and then put it down in the middle. And then you just go with your figure 8. I'm going to sit that. One thing that helps, sitting this in a little glass bowl. So, as you can see, do the figure 8 stitch, and that is, oops, trapping the black yarn down. But just so I can get it tightened in the way I want to, I'm going ahead and knitting off just a few of them that have the black that way I can take and tighten that string up and leave it just lay right in that track. If some of it comes out, that's perfectly fine. You got it wove back pretty good, so you can trim off any little edges that might come off. But go ahead and do 2 rows of your figure 8 stitch, just how you started it out. This is row 1, then you'll knit off, then you'll do a second row. I have my 2 rows done. You see it up close. Now we get to the fun part. I still have my yarn hooked. Have it tucked in a little yarn pocket. I guess that's what I'm going to call it. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to zoom this in some for you. Actually, I want to zoom it in on that side. There we go. At this point, what we're going to do is we got to get all the stitches from this inside circle on this outside circle, and then we're going to do a basic bind off. So just start anywhere. Pick the stitch up from one side. You want to keep it twisted and put it on the other side. It's probably the most difficult thing in this entire project. You want to kind of push them down as you go so that the stitches don't pop off. Once you get part of it done, you can actually kind of pull down on this part, see, and that'll kind of pull them down and secure them. You see, I'm making sure to leave them twisted. Oops, yeah, drop that one. Pick it up. Make sure it's still twisted. So go all the way around the loom and do that, and then you can kind of pull them down, and every peg on the loom will have 2 stitches like this on them. Every peg has the 2 stitches now, and this inside loom is completely empty. So for our cast off, like I said, we are doing a basic cast off. I'm taking my ball yarn, throwing it back into the bowl. A basic bind off, which, let me move my camera down just a little bit, maybe make it a little easier to see this. It's not a hard cast off at all, and it gives a very nice edge to it. See? The edge looks crocheted and very nice and even. But I'm doing it with both stitches. You can take the bottom loops over the tops, but then you end up with with holes. So step 1, you E-wrap 2 pegs. See, the yarn is coming from this peg, so I'm E-wrapping these 2 pegs. You take both bottom stitches over the top because you're treating them just like one. So let's say this is peg 1, this is peg 2. Take the stitch from peg 2, put it on peg 1. Then you want to knit off, which take that bottom loop over. Now we need to fill in this gap. Step 3, you just move the stitch over and fill in the gap. Even though this is a new stitch, we're still going to consider this peg 1, so we wrap 2 pegs. From now on, only the second peg will have 2 stitches on it because that first peg's going to be a new stitch. So there's step 1, step 2, second stitch over and knit off. Step 3, fill in the empty space. I'll show you a couple more times. E-wrap 2. Bottom over. See, there's 2 on that one, both of them over. Stitch from peg 2 onto peg 1, knit off, and then move it back over. Okay, and I'll show you one more time. Step 1, E-wrap 2 pegs, knit off. Step 2, stitch from peg 2 onto peg 1 and knit off. Step 3, fill in the gap. Move stitch 1 to stitch from peg 1 to peg 2. Do this all the way around the loom. When you get to your last couple, I'll show you what to do. Down to my last 2 pegs. As you can see, I did absolutely nothing different than what I showed you the whole way around. Make sure I got this in the shot. So we E-wrap the 2. Knit them off. And then move the second one over. Knit off. Then we cut the string. You want to have enough to weave in. Pull the string up or down through the loop. It really doesn't make a difference. That just creates a bit of a knot and forces it to stay there. Alright, there we go. Let me zoom out. Now's when I get to say, but wait, there's more! Alright, so now we got to crochet our cast on. Grab your crochet hook, which I'm going to just show you. See how this striped? It swirled. So that's really cool and I like it. Okay. Let me zoom in on this cast on part. There we go. I want to do a little bit more. Okay. So we've got this string. And if you look, it's separating all these stitches here. So what we do is, this is the cast on string, this is what we're going to secure like the last stitch with. So we go to the next one, this one's kind of tied into it, so I want to go to this stitch. And we're only picking up the stitches above that beige collar. So we pick up the first 2, take the second one past, then you pick up the next one, take that second one over, pick up the next one. You can see the stitches are kind of crossed. I just pick up the back one, and then you'll have like a front one. And I do this all the way around. And see how it's giving you that crochet edge. Now it's not going to be exact to your cast off because doing the cast off the way I did, it puts the crochet edge kind of on the outside, and this will have the crochet edge on the bottom here. This is what you do all the way around, which I'm going to go ahead and work it to just the last couple stitches and I'll show you what to do. Okay, so I'm right here back at my beginning, so I can go ahead and cut that. What I've got left is there is like 2 stitches right here. It's that cast on in that next stitch. I'm just going to grab both of those at the same time. Now that's all the stitches, so now you can actually take and pull that string out and see. And now I got to kind of connect both of these, but you want to kind of run, like if this is already locked in, you can weave it in, but I kind of want to. Okay, so we got our tail here. I'm going to pick up, skip over, I'll pick up this stitch. I'm going to kind of run the tail with it for just a couple stitches. I just want to get this as even as I possibly can. So I got the tail there. Let me see here. I will pick up, it doesn't really matter. I'm just, there we go. And then run just the tail through. Whatever your last one is, you just run the tail through. You take your crochet hook and kind of weave this in, which what I like to do is I will use the collar, the collared row right here, because it seems to blend in a lot better. So I put my hook under both And just pull that through. And then lots of times I'll go down and do this to a few of them. There are so many ways to weave in ends. You guys can pick and choose whatever your favorite way is. But there's how. You weave that in, however long you want, and cut off the end. Now for this top one, see, we're going to have to do some weaving here too. But not a lot. So basically what I do is, there's 2 stitches here, I pick those up, pull that through, and you want it to be kind of tight. And I'm actually going to loop it around it again. That way that just stays nice and tight. I've noticed with some of the other ones I've made, this right here doesn't want to stay tight. So I'm stitching it in even farther. Just to make it tighter. And I could have used a slightly smaller crochet hook too. Which this one is. What was that? A double M 4.566. I don't really know how to read crochet hooks too well. Not yet. It's on my list. But yeah, I should have picked one just a little bit smaller. But I've got it ran through a couple stitches. I want to pick up if I can get it. Get on the hook. Okay, there we go. Pick up that stitch. Pull it through. Then you're going to do a chain 1. Pull that through. Lock that in place. And then we will weave it in down through here again. We're going to weave that in down through here again, just through a few. Might weave that in a little more, and then cut the string. But let me flip this inside out, which it's completely reversible. But I'm just showing you what each side looks like. Now this is the cast off inside out, so I kind of like to stretch it a bit. I love it how the collars, I can zoom out now, but look at this, I love how the collars just swirl. Awesome! And I had no clue it was going to do that to begin with. That's just how it ended up. But I'll show you the cast off edge right here and the cast on edge up next to each other, so you can see. See, we got the crochet chain on the very end, whereas this one is on the side. And doing the 2 rows of figure 8 stitch is not quite as long, so I think I'm going to do 3 rows of figure 8 stitch on the cast on for the PDF maybe, just to even it out a little bit. But there you go, all done. Now for the hat, which for the hat, all you do, you actually do the exact same thing. There's a different cast off part. So I will show you guys how to do the cast off for the hat in a separate video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. This is such a fun project to do, and it is super worn and super soft. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy it, and it's a very easy one to do that looks a lot more difficult than it actually is. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And my next video out will be the full PDF and pattern for the matching hat to go with this. Which, as you can see from this other one, the hat's just a little shorter, not much shorter than the cowl is. And that gives you, it's long enough to do kind of like as a floppy hat, or have enough to pull up for a nice little brim. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and make sure you have your notifications set on to follow me. That way you will get emails when I put new videos out. Thank you guys. Have a nice day.